I've been a cop for 15 years, a detective for 10 of them. I've seen the worst humanity has to offer. Blood-soaked alleyways, shattered families, eyes frozen in fear. But nothing prepared me for the moment I found the note on my kitchen counter. It was a simple sheet of paper, lined, torn from a notebook. The handwriting was jagged, almost frantic. "We have your wife. Play along or she dies." My knees buckled, and I gripped the edge of the counter to steady myself. The house was eerily silent, every corner feeling like it held a secret I didn't want to know. Amanda was supposed to be here. She'd planned to cook dinner tonight, her famous lasagna, and I'd promised to be home early. But now, the empty kitchen mocked me, the note taunting me with its implications. I scanned the house, every room, every closet, hoping, praying for some sign of her. But there was nothing. No struggle, no broken glass, no overturned furniture. Whoever had taken her was careful, deliberate. This wasn't a random act. It was personal. I'd been working a case for months now, one that had started as a faint whisper in the precinct. An illegal marketplace on the dark web, trading in everything from drugs and weapons to people. It was the kind of operation that made you question why you'd ever put on a badge. The higher-ups didn't want to touch it. Too risky, too complicated. But I couldn't let it go. There were victims who needed justice, families who deserved answers. And now, it seemed, the case had come home to me. The first thing I did was grab my laptop. My hands trembled as I booted it up, entering the hidden layers of the internet that had become all too familiar to me. The marketplace, ominously named the Black Veil, had a cold, sterile interface. No frills, no distractions. Just categories and listings. I'd spent countless nights scrolling through it, cataloging usernames, decoding messages, trying to find the cracks in their armor. And now, I was searching for her. My phone buzzed on the counter. A blocked number. I answered it, my voice sharper than I intended. "Where is she?" A distorted voice on the other end, synthetic and void of humanity. "Detective Thorne. You've been busy. Too busy." My grip tightened around the phone. "If you hurt her, save the threats. You're going to do exactly what we say. Otherwise, Amanda's life expectancy drops significantly. Understand?" My heart pounded in my chest, a drumbeat of rage and fear. "What do you want?" "You're going to stop your investigation. Destroy every file, every note, every lead. And then, you're going to deliver a package for us." "A package?" "You'll find the details in your email. Fail to comply, and you'll get her back in pieces." The line went dead. I slammed the phone onto the counter, the sound echoing through the empty house. My mind raced, torn between the need to follow their instructions and the burning desire to bring them down. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let them win. I opened my email, and there it was. A single message, no subject line, no sender information. Inside was an address and a set of instructions. I was to pick up a package from a storage unit across town and deliver it to a drop point. No cops, no trackers. Just me. I grabbed my gun and my badge, hesitating for a moment as I stared at the gold shield. This wasn't going to be a clean operation. If I played this wrong, I could lose everything. But Amanda was worth it. She was worth all of it. Before leaving, I sent a single message to my partner, Detective Ruiz. "Need you to cover for me. Trust me on this." Ruiz and I had been through hell together, and I knew he'd have my back, no questions asked. At least for now. The storage unit was in a desolate part of the city, the kind of place where the streetlights flickered more often than they worked. I parked a block away, my pulse quickening as I approached the metal doors. Unit 17. The lock was old, easy to pick. Inside, a plain cardboard box sat on a metal shelf. No markings, no labels. I lifted it carefully, half expecting it to explode or trigger some kind of alarm. But it was light, deceptively so. Back in the car, I debated opening it. Curiosity clawed at me, but I couldn't risk it. Not yet. I had to play by their rules, at least for now. The drop point was even sketchier, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. I parked outside, scanning the area for any signs of movement. Nothing. The instructions were clear. Leave the package inside and walk away. But as I stepped through the creaking doors, The faint glow of a laptop screen caught my eye. It sat on a table in the center of the room. Its webcam pointed directly at me. A message flashed across the screen. "Open the box." My gut screamed at me to turn and run, but I couldn't. Not without knowing what I was dealing with. I set the box down, carefully peeling back the tape. Inside was a single USB drive, nestled in a bed of black foam. Simple. Innocuous. But I knew better. Nothing about this was simple. Another message appeared on the screen. "Plug it in." I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the drive. This was a trap. I could feel it, but I was already in too deep. If I wanted to save Amanda, I had to play their game. Sliding the drive into the laptop, the screen flickered, and then
a video began to play. The scene was a dimly lit room, sterile and clinical, with Amanda bound to a chair in the center. Her head hung low, her hair obscuring her face. My stomach twisted as I saw the dark bruise on her temple. She was alive, but barely. A voice came through the laptop, the same distorted tone as the phone call. "Now you understand the stakes, Detective Thorne. The files on this drive will ensure your compliance. Share them with anyone, and your wife dies. Fail to complete the next task, and she dies. You have 24 hours. The screen went black, and I stood there frozen, a storm of emotions raging inside me: fear, anger, desperation. I pulled the USB drive out and pocketed it, my mind already calculating my next move. This wasn't just about Amanda anymore. These people thought they owned me, that they could bend me to their will. But they underestimated me. They didn't know I'd already taken precautions. I stepped out of the warehouse, my heart pounding as I scanned the area again. Still no sign of anyone. I got back into my car and drove to a safe house, a rundown apartment I'd kept under the radar for years. It was my fallback, stocked with burner phones, a separate laptop, and a hard drive containing every piece of evidence I'd gathered on the Black Veil. Once inside, I locked the door and slid the USB drive into the burner laptop. The files on it were encrypted, but I recognized the structure immediately: financial records, coded messages, and transaction logs. It was a treasure trove of information, proof that the Black Veil had deep connections to powerful people. They hadn't just handed me leverage, they'd handed me the keys to dismantling their entire operation. I needed a plan, and fast. I couldn't do this alone, but I couldn't trust anyone fully either, not with Amanda's life on the line. Except maybe Ruiz. He was the one person who wouldn't blink, who'd seen the worst of me, and still stuck around. I dialed his number on a burner phone, my voice low. "Ruiz, I need you to meet me."
"Now?"
"Where?" "The safe house." A pause. "You sure about this?" "Just get here." 20 minutes later, Ruiz walked through the door, his sharp eyes scanning the room before landing on me. "What the hell's going on, Sam?" I handed him the USB drive and explained everything: the note, the call, Amanda's abduction, and the drive's contents. By the time I finished, Ruiz's jaw was clenched, his hands balled into fists. "You should have called me sooner," he said. I couldn't risk it. Not with her life at stake. Ruiz nodded, his expression hardening. "What's the plan?" "We use this drive to hit them where it hurts, but we do it carefully. I need you to be my eyes on the outside while I deliver this next package. And we need to track down where they're keeping Amanda." Ruiz smirked, though it didn't reach his eyes. "You've got a death wish, you know that?" "Yeah," I said, grabbing my gun. "But it's the only way." As we pieced together the next steps, I felt a flicker of hope. These people thought they'd trapped me, but they'd made a critical mistake. They'd underestimated how far I'd go for Amanda, and how much I was willing to burn to bring them down. This wasn't just about playing their game anymore. It was about rewriting the rules. Ruiz and I worked through the night. The first step was planting a tracker inside the USB drive. Ruiz, a tech whiz in another life, managed to embed a signal that would activate once the drive was accessed again. If they plugged it in somewhere, we'd find them. The next morning, I followed their instructions to the letter. I delivered the next package, a briefcase stuffed with cash, to a black sedan waiting in an underground parking garage. The driver didn't say a word, but the look in his eyes told me he knew exactly who I was. He took the briefcase and drove off, leaving me standing alone in the cold, stale air. I walked back to my car, heart pounding. Ruiz had planted a secondary tracker in the briefcase. If they went to Amanda, we'd know. Hours passed. Ruiz and I huddled in the safe house, staring at the blinking dot on his laptop screen. The briefcase had stopped moving at an old industrial complex on the outskirts of the city. It was the perfect hideout, abandoned, isolated, and sprawling. "They've got her there," Ruiz said. "Then we move." We geared up, grabbing weapons, comms, and a backup burner phone. This wasn't going to be official. No backup, no SWAT team. Just us. When we reached the complex, the sun was setting, casting long shadows over the crumbling buildings. Ruiz stayed back to monitor from a distance, feeding me updates through an earpiece as I crept inside. The place was a labyrinth of rusted machinery and damp concrete. My steps were silent, my gun steady in my hands. I passed empty rooms and darkened hallways until I found her. Amanda was still bound to the chair, her head slumped forward. My heart clenched as I rushed to her side, checking her pulse. She stirred, her eyes fluttering open. "Sam," she whispered, her voice weak. "I've got you," I said, cutting through the ropes. "We're getting out of here." But before I could move, a voice echoed through the room. "Not so fast, detective." I spun around, my gun trained on the shadowy figure emerging from the darkness. It was a man in a tailored suit, his face obscured by the dim light. He held a gun of his own, aimed squarely at Amanda. "You really couldn't leave well enough alone, could you?" he said, stepping closer. "Always the hero." "Let her go," I said, my voice ice cold. "This ends here." He smirked. "You're right. It does." A sudden noise behind him drew his attention. A faint beep. Ruiz's tracker had done its job. The briefcase they'd taken was wired with a time distraction, a small, non-lethal explosion. The sound of the blast reverberated through the complex, throwing the man off balance. I didn't hesitate. I fired a single shot, hitting him in the shoulder. He cried out, dropping his gun. I grabbed Amanda and pulled her to her feet, supporting her weight as we moved toward the exit. Ruiz met us outside, covering our retreat as more men swarmed the area. Together, we fought our way out, the adrenaline pushing us forward. By the time we reached the car, Amanda was slumped in the back seat, safe but exhausted. As Ruiz drove, I looked back at the burning complex in the rearview mirror. We'd taken down some of their operation, but I knew this was far from over. The Black Veil wasn't just one man or one location. It was a network, a hydra with many heads. But for now, Amanda was safe. That was all that mattered. Later that night, as she rested in a hospital bed, I sat by her side, holding her hand. Her eyes fluttered open, and she gave me a weak smile. "You came for me," she said. "Always," I replied. The fight wasn't over, but it could wait. For now, I was exactly where I needed to be,